this is Ciarfox, and welcome to my stream. Figured I might as well start having some, at least music behind when I'm speaking, so... What better than Subnautica? I don't want it too loud, though. Hey y'all, this is Ciarfox. I hope you... what am I doing? I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna open up real quick with, one of my viewers, did a science. So, we're gonna show that off. And this is the press release for the, Waterloo rocketry. Anyways, this is from the University of Waterloo. Waterloo rocketry soars to new heights with Canada's first liquid engine rocket launch. Timians, Ontario. Waterloo Rocketry, a student-designed team from the University of Waterloo, proudly announced its historic milestone in Canadian aerospace with a successful launch of the Borealis. Hey, Lone Wolf! This is something that Ash did while in college. So, we're doing the press release for it to show off. Successful launch of Borealis, the first ever Canadian liquid biopropellant rocket. The launch occurred on August 20th, 2024, during the 3rd annual Launch Canada event, just outside Timmins, Ontario. The Borealis rocket, powered by a bipropellant mixture of ethanol and nitrous oxide, reached an altitude of 5,855 meters, or 19,212 feet, and achieved the top speed of 1,646 kilometers per hour before falling back to the ground under its own parachute, designed entirely by the students, building on years of team history. This rocket showcased the culmination of the advanced engineering capabilities developed by the team throughout its past 13 years. This accomplishment positions the University of Waterloo as a leading institution in the Canadian student rocketry, joining a select group of universities globally that have successfully launched a liquid engine rockets. In the years to come, the team plans to continue building bigger and better liquid bipropellant rockets, with sights set for higher altitudes and more complex payloads, and continued learning to further propel Canada into the global aerospace arena. We can actually watch the video.
Current read 0. Fire ignition in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch. Fire. Oh, sorry, fire.
Full video is unavailable. Okay, I might have a video that actually is full. We'll pretend. But apparently they were a few hundred feet away, so they weren't close at all. Well, I mean, obviously for why, but... sometimes they have little buildings that, when they do tests like this, that they are in. But no. Yeah, so cool! All the dust. Yeah, it is a perfect area for doing that kind of stuff. I don't want... Oh, let's see. Anyways! I'm gonna cut that out later. Alright. Space photo of the week. The first ever up close of Neptune is Voyager 2's final portrait of the planet. It's a false color photograph of Neptune. Through 3 different filters. Where is it? 2.8 billion miles, or 4.5 billion kilometers. I know I'm saying kilometers like other people say it from the sun. Kilometers. When it was taken, August 25th, 1989. They've been keeping it for so long. God. When it was shared, August 19th, 2024. Why it's so special. The only spacecraft that has ever visited the 8th and most distant planet from the sun. You know, because, you know, Pluto, what's that? On August 25th, 1989, NASA's Voyager 2 spacecraft took the first ever close-up image of Neptune. This one among the last full-disc photos taken before the probe entered its grand tour of the planets, became one of the most iconic. It revealed Neptune as a deep azure blue, which colored the public's perception of the planet for decades. That is until a new treatment of Voyager 2's images earlier this year reveals Neptune's true color to be a much lighter blue-green. Voyager 2's original images were taken in false color using filters, a standard technique used by planetary astronomers. In this case, the blue and green filters were used alongside one that passed light at a wavelength absorbed by methane gas. Methane gas. According to the scientists, hydrogen and helium dominate Neptune's atmosphere, but the methane gives it its blue appearance by absorbing red light. The filters make the methane look a dark blue in this image, but they also reveal a semi-transparent haze layer across the planet. The bright red edge around Neptune is caused by the haze scattering sunlight at higher altitudes above most of the methane. Voyager 2 took this shot almost precisely 12 years after it launched on a Titan Centaur rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Having visited Jupiter in 1979, Saturn in 1981, and Uranus in 1985, Voyager's closest approach to Neptune came on August 25th, 1989. During the flyby, Voyager also visited two of Neptune's moons, Triton and Nereid, and discovered 6 new moons and 4 rings. Because Neptune is about 30 times further from the sun than the Earth is, it gets only a fraction of a percent of the Earth's sunlight, meaning Voyager 2 had to take long exposure images. So the engineers fired the fast-moving spacecraft's thrusters to have it rotate so the camera could remain focused. Voyager 2's images from Neptune were its last, sent back as radio signatures with 13-watt transmitters, about enough power to run a refrigerator light bulb, according to NASA. Damn. And it took 4 hours to travel across the solar system to NASA's deep space network of radio antennae across the world. Neptune was Voyager 2's last stop before it traveled to the solar system's edge. The probe entered the interstellar space on November 5th, 2018. Voyager 2 remains NASA's longest-running mission, even after encountering some communication problems last summer. We went over that in one of the other streams on what they figured out how to fix it with. Alright, now we have a whole bunch of stuff from Hubble and the James Webb Telescope. And also the Gaia one. Actually a whole bunch of telescopes. Discovered 358 asteroids with hidden moons. Gaia detected hidden moons around asteroids. The European Space Agency's Gaia Space Telescope has identified potential moons orbiting more than what they said was 358 asteroids, previously thought to be single bodies. This discovery suggests that many asteroids in the solar system might have undiscovered companions. Doubling known binary asteroid systems. If confirmed, these findings will nearly double the known number of binary asteroid systems, adding significant data to our understanding of asteroid composition and behavior within the solar system. I hate you, Business Today, for this setup. Challenges in detecting binary asteroids. Binary asteroids are difficult to detect due to their small size and distance from the Earth. Despite predictions that 1/6 of asteroids may have companions, only about 500 binary systems have been identified before Gaia's recent observations. Okay, I just noticed the pause. button up there. The importance of studying asteroids. Asteroids are remnants from the early solar system, preserving material from the time when the planets formed. Studying them provides insights to the conditions and processes that shaped the solar system over 4.6 billion years ago. By the way, a lot of these for the night are going to be space related. Just stating. I have to keep hitting pause for it? Bitch! Revealing the solar system history, binary asteroids can offer valuable information about the early solar system, particularly regarding the frequent collisions that occur during the formative years. Understanding these interactions can shed light on how planetary bodies evolved. Hit the pause button again. Gotta remember to do that. Gaia's advanced capabilities. Gaia's recent data release, which includes highly precise asteroid orbit measurements, allow researchers to detect small wobbles in an asteroid's path, indicating the presence of moons exerting gravitational influence. Well, one of the other problems with, I'm guessing, is unlike trying to say the dimming of like stars when, say, a moon passes across it. You don't get that, of course, with asteroids because they don't glow. Gaia's upcoming fourth data release in 2026 is anticipated to prove even more detailed information on asteroid orbits, potentially uncovering additional asteroid moon systems and further expanding our knowledge of the solar system. By the way, I forgot to ask, how are you doing, Wolf? ESA's continued exploration of binary asteroids. Beyond Gaia, the European Space Agency will also launch the Hertus mission in October to study the asteroid Dynamos and its moon Dimorphos. These missions will investigate the impact of NASA's DART mission, which aim to test the planetary defense strategies by altering an asteroid's trajectory. I don't want that. 5 out of 10 day. Well, at least it's on the middling range, but... Oh, I forgot to... I was gonna do that. But that's later on. Forgot to pull up that one. We also have some, information about 2 new things that we can look up in the sky soon, which I'll speak louder on that. Mystery in the Stars. Hubble unveils Omega Centauri's hidden monster. Look at that. Look at that! Ton. Huh? I might have accidentally seen. Yeah, I'd say that's ton. Analyzing 500. Astronomers are analyzing 500 Hubble Space Telescope images over 2 decades discovered 7 fast-moving stars in the Omega Centauri, the largest global cluster. Actually, that would actually... I need to move this there, if I remember. Say, I'm sorry I don't have everything in the order that they should be. I thought I did. Nothing like A being a perfectionist and B being a procrastinator. Largest global cluster. It's been over my TikToky for Space Sphere. Oh, I don't think I have anything on that one. I love that I see something in the corner of my eye that's interesting. I'm just adding on... At this rate, I'm just adding on stuff to read about. ADHD go, I know! Providing new evidence of an intermediate massive black hole. This black hole, potentially the closest to the Earth, challenges our understanding of such celestial bodies. Challenging our understanding of such celestial bodies and suggests a new home for intermediate massive black holes. Those images, by the way, those visual things of the cosmic core just bother me. I know that has nothing really to do with yeah, also ADHD go burr. Nothing to do with what we're talking about now, but the space, like, I wonder if I should bring it up because this is a science stream. See, we have to be official with this kind of thing. I'm just gonna... Just this.
Right on schedule. Right on schedule now. Move down the track. Okay?
Yep.
60 feet.
The cosmic horror kind of thing. Not that the music makes it any better. Well, there's two different ones you put on Discord. The other one I'm probably going to turn the music down on, because that makes it worse. Sorry, Sorry, I was looking up the other one. So that's the reason why the... Where is it? Where is it? Ah! How long ago was it? It wasn't that long ago. Do you have it? Yeah, the one that's eating the planet. Looking for it. I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it! Ah! Let me real quickly go to... I was like, nothing like ADHD. And yes, I did take my medicine. Or did you send it directly to me? I think you put it in the... Or did you put it in the memes? Yep, you put it in the memes. Copy link. Nope. Oh, it's trying to save it. I don't really want to show it on... Like I said, I'm turning the music down on that, because that makes it about 1,000 times worse. We'll go back to the other one. That's just the cosmic horror of this. Yeah, the music makes it worse. That's some Ito bullshit there. There's a manga that's end of the world kind of eating up. By the way, I know this is science stream, but I am distracted, and I'll make this a joke about it being computer science and the fact that they could make this look so realistic. Does that work as a good statement for that? But let's... Sorry. And this is the other cosmic horror thing.
27 feet, right on schedule. Right on schedule now. Full stop scratch. Okay? 60 feet. Houston, we've had a problem.
I mean, just... how it, like, comes across the horizon, like... ah! By the way, I'm curious on whether I should continue to put this under the category of just chatting. Or whether I should put it under podcast, even though I don't... Podcast comes from putting it on iTunes. But that's a different subject altogether. Actually, the reason why... with the Y chromosomes, that's one of the last ones we're going to be doing, is it's more about, the chromosome is being replaced by a different one. To some degree, that still is far more... See, a new sex gene. But the human stuff is towards the end, or the biology stuff is towards the end. Usually start off with space. Omega Centauri's black hole discovery. Intermediate mass black holes are a long-sought missing link in black hole evolution. Only a few other IMBH's candidates have been found to date. Most known black holes are either extremely massive, like the supermassive black holes that lie at the core of large galaxies. Formably, we are formed to be female until a certain point, but that doesn't mean that we are 100% female in the womb. We're in the formative weeks. And then hormones and all this other stuff start playing a role into it. Black hole, most are that lie at the center of large galaxies are extremely lightweight with a mass less than 100 times that of the sun. Black holes are one of the most extreme environments humans are aware of, and so they are a testing ground for the laws of physics and our understanding of how the universe works. If intermediate mass black holes exist, how common are they? Does a supermassive black hole grow from a I'm gonna mess up. IMBH themselves, or are dense clusters their favorite home? This image shows a location of the IMBH. If confirmed, its distance is 17,700 light years. At its distance of 17,700,000 light years, in the candidate black hole resides closer to the Earth than the 4.3 million solar mass black hole at the center of the Milky Way, which is 26,000 light years away. Besides the galactic center, it would also be the only known case of a number of stars closely bound to a massive black hole. This image includes 3 panels. The first image at the left shows the globular cluster, Omega Centauri, a collection of myriad stars colored red, white, and blue in the black background of space. Oh, so American colors. Hardy har har har. The second image shows the details of the central cluster region of this cluster. The reason why it's probably red, white, and blue is purely because of the light spectrum. I'm just teasing. With a closer view of the individual stars. The third image shows the location of the IMVH candidate in the cluster. Observations from the southern skies. Omega Centauri is visible from the Earth with the naked eye, and one of the favored celestial objects for stargazers in the southern hemisphere. Those cluster is 17,700 light years away, lying just above the plane of the Milky Way. Found the other video. Nice. Making a great movie. Nothing like horror. It appears as large as the full moon when seen from a dark rural area. The exact classification of the Omega Centauri has evolved through time, as our ability to study it has improved. It was first listed in Ptolemy's catalog nearly 2,000 years ago as a single star. Alright, sounds good. Edmund Halley reported it as a nebula in 1677, and in the 1830s, the English astronomer John Herschel was the first to recognize it as a global cluster. Globular clusters are typically considered up to 1 million old stars, tightly bound together by gravity, and are found both on the outskirts and the central regions of many galaxies, including our own. Omega Centauri has several characteristics that distinguish it from other globular clusters. It rotates faster than a run-of-the-mill globular cluster, and its shape is highly flattened. Moreover, Omega Centauri is about 10 times as massive as other big globular clusters, almost as massive as a small galaxy. I mean, yeah, really, look at that. Isn't that just wow? Absolutely. Unveiling star motions in the Omega Centauri. Omega Centauri consists roughly of 10 million stars that are gravitationally bound. An international team has now created an enormous catalog of the motions of these stars, measuring the velocities for 1.4 million stars by studying over 500 Hubble images of the cluster. Most of these observations were intended to calibrate Hubble's instruments rather than for scientific use, but they turned out to be an ideal database for the team's research efforts. The extensive catalog, which is the largest catalog of motions for any star cluster to date, will be made openly available. That's awesome that they are. Is it yet? Just coming from a nerd like me. PDF. I forgot to turn off ad breaks. I'm sorry. Ah! I only do this once a month. I am so sorry. Oh, while that's loading. We discovered 7 stars that should not be there. I'm sorry, Lone Wolf. I forgot to turn off ad break. I am so sorry for the stream. You know, yeah, since I only do it once a month, you'd think. Explain Maximin Harbella of the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy in Germany, who led this investigation. They are moving so fast that they should escape the cluster and never come back. The most likely explanation is that a very massive object is gravitationally pulling on these stars and keeping them close to the center. The only object that can be so massive is a black hole with a mass at least 8,200 times that of our sun. Oh, no, I did a pause on it because I forgot you were there. Sorry. I mean, you weren't there. Because as soon as I saw it, I was like, pause, 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 pause. But yeah, that's a lot. Evidence of a intermediate mass black hole. Several studies have suggested the presence of an IMBH in the Mega Centauri. However, other studies propose that the mass could be contributed by a central cluster of stellar mass black holes, and had suggested the lack of fast-moving stars above the necessary escape velocity made an IMBH less likely in comparison. This discovery is the most direct evidence so far of an IMHB in the Omega Centauri, added team lead Nadine Mayer, also the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy, who initiated the study with Anil Seth of the University of Utah in the United States. This is exciting because there are only a few other black holes known with similar mass. The black hole in the Omega Centauri may be the best example in our cosmic neighborhood. If confirmed, we've read that aloud. That part aloud. Besides the galactic center, it would also be the only known case of a number of stars closely bound to a massive black hole. The science team now hopes to characterize the black hole. While it is believed to measure at least 8,200 solar masses, its exact mass and its precise position are not fully known. The team also intends to study the orbits of the fast-moving stars, which requires additional measurements of respective line-of-sight velocities. The team has also been granted time with the James Webb Space Telescope to do just that, and has other pending proposals to use other observatories. The Omega Centauri is also a recent feature of the new release in the ESA's Gaia mission, which contains over 500,000 stars. Even after 30 years, the Space Hubble telescope with its imaging instruments are still one of the best tools for high-precision astronomy in the crowded stellar fields. Regions where Hubble can provide added sensitivity to the ESA's Gaia mission observations, a shared team member, Mata Lato of the National Institute for Astrophysics in Italy, and the previously of the Aura for the European Space Agency during the time of this study. Our results showcase the Hubble's high resolution and sensitivity that are giving us new exciting insights, and will give a new boost to the topics of IMHBs and global clusters. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that. Is this like an announcement? Oh no, it goes pretty deep into this. This is interesting, the thing that they said were releasing it. But no, this is the actual paper they released talking about the abstract on it. Alright, super speedy space objects surprise scientists. Super speedy, sorry. NASA scientists say they spotted a mysterious object that's darting through space. The object, which has been named Seawise J1 I'm just gonna call it Sea-Wise. J1249 is estimated to be nearly 30,000 times larger than the size of the Earth. It's also thought to be moving at least 1 million miles per hour. At that speed, you could fly to the moon in less than 15 minutes. In fact, it's moving so fast through our galaxy that experts think that it could break out of the Milky Way. What did the scientists find? The discovery was made by citizen scientists working on NASA's Backyard Worlds project. The project uses the public's help to find new planets and planet-like objects in the sky by studying images that have been taken by the space agency. Whereas most stars peacefully orbit the center of the Milky Way, a mysterious, faint-moving fast object was spotted excuse me, sorry. Zooming out of our galaxy. I know what it is. It's God when he realizes what humans are doing. Sarcasm. See, I want nothing to do with this shit. Leave us. Blasphemy, I know. One of the people who first spotted the object, Martin Kabatnik, couldn't believe what he had seen. He said, "I can't describe the level of excitement. When I first saw how fast it was moving, I was convinced it must have been reported already." NASA then used a number of ground-based telescopes to help confirm the discovery. After tracking the object, experts calculated that it's moving at roughly 1 million miles per hour. Astronomers still are trying to figure out what the mysterious object is, but they think it could be a brown dwarf. That is the name given to objects that are too small to be stars, but are larger than most planets. However, NASA says that no other brown dwarfs are known to be on their way out of the galaxy. Experts also think this is quite old, and is likely to have come from one of the first generation of stars in the Milky Way. So basically it got flung out, I guess? Catapulted out. Alright. Scientists collect high-resolution images of the North Star's surface for the first time. Polaris might be heavier and spottier than expected. In our solar system, scattered across one of the Earth's verdant mountains, 6 white shell telescopes gazed into the deep universe. As one cohesive hive, the dome structures collect cosmic light to guide modern astronomers exploring space. And it's thanks to this hive that we now have a brilliant new perspective on the light that guides astronomers of the past, the North Star. Our visual knowledge of the current North Star, because of the Earth's axial wobble, the tidal passes to different stars over the eons, runs deep. Artists old and new have depicted Polaris shining in their paintings. Astrophotographers have imaged it from their backyards, and scientists have pointed their instruments at it for decades. But what's special about the new Polaris views, courtesy of Cara Array on Mount Wilson in California, has to do with resolution. The special thing about Cara is, as touched on, its telescope works in tandem with one another. Their light data is combined in a central facility to provide one whole clear picture of a source. It is as though the sextet of the worker telescopes forms one ultimate telescope with a diameter of 330 meters or 1,083 feet. And because of this, the project's image resolution, specifically the angular resolution, is excellent. Sure enough, after checking some of the Polaris images put together with some Cara observations taken between 2016 and 2021, scientists found that some of the previously unknown features of the star. Most notably, there are discernible spots on the star's surface, kind of like the sunspots we see on the sun every now and then. The Cara images reveal large, bright and dark spots on the surface of Polaris that change over time, says Gail Schaefer, director of the Char Array, said in a statement. One of the major reasons this finding comes as a surprise has to do with the fact that Polaris isn't any old star. It's a sort of star known as a Cepheid variable, which means it brightens and dims periodically. Polaris in particular gets brighter and fainter according to a 4-day cycle, and scientists love locating Ciarfox due to the very predictable nature. That's because it allows these stars to be used for cosmic distance measurements. Basically, watching the change in Ciarfox's brightness over one cycle can reveal its true brightness. By contrast, without predictably periodic pulsations, a star wouldn't be very reliable for such measurements. At a risk of simplification, a dim star, for instance, could be either far away or just small. Or it could be weirdly dim for some other reason. Or it could just happen to be dim during the time which it was observed. Returning to those spots, as the car team says, these high-resolution images of Polaris mark the first glimpse of what the surface of a Cepheid variable looks like. So, to find spots with the first glimpse was intriguing, but these spots weren't the only results of the team's analysis. Okay, this is a false color image. It reveals large, bright, and dark spots on the surface. Yep, you can definitely see that. Polaris appears to be about 600,000 times smaller than the full moon in the sky. Unlike our lonely sun, Polaris doesn't roam the universe by itself. Boasting about 46 times the size of our host star, and lying over 400 light-years away from us, it's part of a triple star system. It just happens to be the brightest of its siblings. In fact, the original goal of Char's Polaris investigation was to map the orbit of the star that circles our North Star once every 30 years. It's the one that's way closer than the other, making the endeavor a complex feat. I was about to say, I'm guessing because one of them outshines the other. Like siblings do. Hardy har har har. Not only does the star float very close to Polaris, but the companion is also incredibly faint. It wasn't even confirmed to exist until 2005, owing to documentation to the Hubble Space Telescope. The small separation and large contrast in brightness between the two stars make it extremely challenging to resolve the binary system during their closest approach. Well, also, it's a 30-year thing. And as, you know, telescopes improve, and it's not like... anyways, team lead Nancy Evans of the Center for Astrophysicists, Harvard, and Smithsonian, who also helped with the companion's identification, said in a statement, "For that reason, the team dipped into some other astronomy tool boxes as well, such as a speckle interferometer at the Apache Point Observatory in New Mexico. This mission was indeed a success, helping confirm things like the size of Polaris and suggesting that the star may be about 5 times more massive than the Sun, which is heavier than previously thought. That discovery is important in its own right because, as Evans told Science News, only a few Cepheids have their masses determined. It also poses some interesting questions to explore in the future. The mass combined with the distance shows that the Cepheid is more luminous than predicted for its mass from evolutionary tracks, the study authors wrote, for instance. Still, the northern star's spotty nature seem to have taken the limelight, considering how the areas of the star on which the spots are seen and the rate at which the star rotates suggests that a 120-day radial velocity variation, essentially referring to the changes in the object's velocity as seen along the observer's line of sight. That poses another puzzle. We plan to continue imaging Polaris in the future, says John Monnier, an astronomy professor at the University of Michigan and co-author of the study, said in a statement. We hope to better understand the mechanisms that generate the spots on the surface of Polaris. Alright. like I said, we have a whole bunch of new information with stars tonight. Astronomers identify more than 1,000 new star cluster candidates. By analyzing the images obtained by the James Webb Space Telescope, an international team of astronomers have managed to identify more than 1,000 new star cluster candidates in the Cigar Galaxy. Sorry, the name of it. The findings also was reported in a paper published on August 8th on the preprinter service Vixi. What we went for that other article. I mean, not article, the actual paper release. The Cigar Galaxy, also known as Messier 82 M82 or NGC 3034, is a small irregular starburst galaxy located some 11.73 million light years away in the constellation Ursa Major, excuse me. It has a size of about 40,800 light years. Dynamically the mass of some 10 billion solar masses, and is one of the closest starburst galaxies to the Earth. Previous observations of the Cigar Galaxy have identified 260 star clusters within 3,000 light years from the galaxy's center, and 363 star clusters outside this central region. Now, a group of astronomers led by Rebecca C. Levy of the Stewart Observatory in my mind is dying on to say Tucson. Having a moment on remembering how to say that name. Arizona has employed the JWST's near-infrared camera, NEAR camera, with the aim of obtaining more accurate census of star cluster populations of the Cigar Galaxy. The NEAR camera allowed them to detect, catalog, and analyze new near-infrared emitting candidate star clusters. In this letter, we construct and present the JWST NEAR camera star cluster catalog in the central region of the M82 starburst, the researchers wrote. Very scientific. All in all, Levy's team initially identified 2,472 star cluster candidates in the Cigar Galaxy. Based on further analysis, almost half of them were cut as spurious sources, leaving 1,357 star cluster candidates with a mass of at least 10,000 solar masses. About 87% of them have been detected for the first time. The star cluster candidates reported in the paper have a median intrinsic radius about 3.3 light years and have stellar masses of up to 1 million solar masses. The total stellar masses of these star cluster candidates are estimated to be some 40 million solar masses. The astronomers calculated that the cluster mass function for the cluster candidates is at least a level 1.9. Wow. They noted that this value is in excellent agreement with the studies of star clusters and other starburst galaxies. The study also we're very scientific on this one. The study also found that the detected star cluster candidates still exhibit heavy dust extinction. Therefore, the researchers concluded that the identified sample represented relatively young, heavily reddened cluster populations in the center. The authors of the paper planned further studies of the reported cluster candidates. First of all, they aim to conduct more precise mass measurements, which should be possible based on new spectroscopic observations with near-infrared and mid-infrared bands. Alright. A massive solar storm opens a rare 2-hour magnetic highway between the sun and the Earth. This sensational event triggered rare auroras on the sun and lasted a mere 2 hours. This is an artist's impression. A colossal solar storm erupted in April last year, completely obliterated part of the Earth's magnetic field, morphing the planet's magnetosphere and causing it to grow wings. As a result of this spectacular rare event, a two-way highway between the Sun and Earth temporarily opened up, sending charged particles in both directions, sparking aurora on both ends. Describing the wild phenomenon in a new study, researchers explained that the Earth typically moves through the magnetized, gives you wings, magnetized solar winds at velocity that exceeds the so-called Alfvén speed, which denotes the speed at which the magnetic waves travel through a plasma. The result, they say, is similar to that caused by supersonically fast fighter jets creating sonic shocks in the air, whereby the Earth's super alphenic motion produces what's known as a bow shock. We've seen pictures of this in the I think even in last month's science stream. In a series of posts on X about the event, NASA explains that the bow shock is likely a frothy waves at the front of a boat as it cuts through the water. Occasionally, however, low-density plasma spewed out by the sun is a kind of eruption called a coronal mass ejection, CME, can cause the Alfvén speed to exceed that of the solar wind. When this occurs, the bow shock disappears and the Earth's magnetosphere loses its typical windsock-like shape, instead developing what are known as Alfvén wings. According to the study's author, these wings magnetically connect our planet to a part of the sun from which the CME erupted, acting as highways for Earth's plasma to be lost to the sun. General statement. We also, there are storms that happen within the magnosphere. If I remember, whether it might have been last or the month before that's talking points that there's storms that appear that there's no way that they should be there. Well, the way that the storm is happening within the magnosphere shouldn't be there. That's exactly what happened April 24th, 2023, when an enormous CME caused auroras to be visible all the way down in the southern US. At one point, while surrounded by the storm, a part of the Earth's magnetic shield briefly dissipated, explains NASA in its X thread. With the bow shock momentarily gone, the magnetic field within the solar eruption, still rooted to the sun, fused with the Earth's magnetic field, continued the agency. Particles trapped by the Earth's magnetism suddenly had an escape, a direct path to the sun. Oh, so even particles wanted to escape the Earth. Hardy har har. In other words, usually one-way flow from the sun to the Earth suddenly went both directions. For about 2 hours, the Earth was also spewing particles back into the sun. If you had supervision, you might even have witnessed an aurora on the sun, as particles from our planet collided with the sun's atmosphere. In reality, the solar aurora would have been far too dim to see against the brilliance of the sun, but the rain of charged particles was detected by NASA's magnetosphere multi-scale spacecraft, which flew towards the Earth's Alfvén wings. Despite being rare in our quarter of the solar systems, the Alfvén wings are actually pretty common elsewhere in the universe. In the realm of gas giants, for instance, these magnetic wings allow for charged particles to reach Jupiter from its moons Io and Ganymede, producing the planet's enormous, gorgeous, ultraviolet auroras. See, that's what it's talking about. Ion. Yeah, I know. Okay, this was from August 15th. Colossal X-class solar flare erupts from a rule-breaking sunspot and Earth in its firing line. The active sun is kicking into overdrive, and we could be in for yet more dazzling auroras. In the early mornings of today, August 14th, the sun unleashed the most powerful cat. Sorry, felt like jumping on this my keyboard. Powerful class of solar flare, a potential X-class eruption. The solar flare peaked at 2:40 a.m. ET, or 6:40 GMT, Greenwich time, median time, I think. Science Cat wants to learn. No, Science Cat currently wants pets. Causing shortwave radio blackouts over the sunlit portion of the Earth at the time of eruption. Asia and the Indian Ocean. What makes this X-class solar flare particularly interesting is that it erupted from a rule-breaking sunspot, AR 3784, which has already garnered the attention of solar scientists and aurora chasers due to its strange polarity. The sunspot's original polarity breaks a 100-year-old rule, Hale's law, whereas sunspots in the northern hemisphere should be polarized minus plus, or is it just plus? I guess minus plus? What is this? What is the exact terminology of this? I confused. I am learning even more new things. Of course I'm going to wiki, it's gonna know. The opposite of the magnetic polarity. North Pole of magnet defended that when the magnet is freely suspended, this is not about the sun though. It has two main structures: the central umbra and the surrounding penumbra. The umbra is the darkest region of the sunspot, which the magnetic field is strongest and approximately vertical or normal to the sun's surface or photosphere. The umbra may be surrounded by completely or only partially by a brighter region known as the penumbra. The penumbrum is I'm still fucking over the name. Composed of radically elongated structures known as penumbral filaments and has a more inclined magnetic field than the umbra. Within sunspot groups, multiple umbra may be surrounded by a singular continuous penumbra. Okay, temperature. Okay, here's the law they're talking about. Magnetic field and suggests that the sunspot cycle period is 22 years, converting the two periods of increased and decreased sunspots, accompanied by polar reversals of the solar magnetic sphere. I mean, solar magnetic diplosphere, which is electromagnetic phenomenon, which occurs in two ways. I mean, I know that the polar stuff changes. An electric diplode deals with the separation of positive and negative electric charges found in any electromagnetic system. A simple example of this is a pair of charges of equal magnitude but opposite sign, separated by typically a small distance. A permanent electric diplode is called an electrete. Magnetic is the closed circulation of electric current system. A simple example is a single loop of wire with a constant current through it. I mean, I kind of remember this from physics. Okay. But also, you know, stuff I haven't like looked at forever. Also, memory loss does do things too. I mean, this does have a kind of moment of recognition to some degree. I recognize it. I don't remember much of it. Should be polarized instead. Sunspot is polarized, which is a whole 90-degree twist according to space weather. It's not the first sunspot to break the rule according to spaceweather.com. It happens approximately 3% of the time. However, a majority of the rule breakers show a reverse polarity of plus minus instead of minus plus. But AR 3784 lies somewhere between. Okay, so there's better images down here. An image of the sun produced positive, which is green, and the blue negative. The blue with the negative is appearing yellow and red. I guess the blue being the strongest point? Or maybe the umbra versus the penumbra. Experts at the spaceweather.com suggest that the magnetic underpinnings of the sunspot are corkscrewing in an unusual way. Oh, look, there's a screwing part of this. Sorry. If the opposite magnetic polarities get twisted together too tightly, there could be an X-class solar flare. Lo and behold, the sunspot did just that. Solar flares are eruptions on the sun's surface that release intense bursts of electromagnetic radiation. These flares occur when a buildup of magnetic energy in the solar atmosphere is suddenly released. They are classified by sizes in different categories, with X-class flares being the most powerful. M-class flares are 10 times less intense than X-class, followed by C-class flares, which are 10 times weaker than M-class. B-class flares are 10 times weaker than C-class, and A-class flares are 10 times weaker than B-class, having no significant effects on the Earth. Within each class, there are numbers from 1 to 10 and beyond for X-class, which indicate the relative strength of the flare. Powerful solar flares, like the one released this morning, can often be accompanied by a coronal mass ejection, a large plume of plasma and magnetic field from the sun. It has since been confirmed that yesterday's X-flare hurled off a faint CME directly towards Earth. The exact timing of when the CEM will arrive is unknown, with NOAA's model suggesting the arrival late August 18th, while NASA's model leans closer to August 17th. Of course, this was in the past. Since we're a month late on this, because, you know, I do this once a month. Aurora hunters, cross your fingers and charge those cameras. Alright. CMEs carry electrically charged particles known as ions, and when they collide with the Earth's magnetosphere, they can trigger geomagnetic storms. During these storms, the ions interact with the gases in the Earth's atmosphere, releasing energy in the form of lights. This phenomenon is recognized as the Aurora Borealis, or the Northern Lights, in the Northern Hemisphere, and the Southern Lights are the Aurora Australis in the Southern Hemisphere. It wasn't just a CME that accompanied the X-flare, but also a strong radio blackout. The shortwave radio blackouts detected over Asia and India, the Indian Ocean, resulted from an intense burst of X-rays and extreme ultraviolet radiation emitted during the X-flare. Radiation from solar flares reaches the Earth at the speed of light and ionizes the upper atmosphere on arrival. This ionization creates a denser environment for high-frequency short-wave radio signals that facilitate long-distance communication to travel through. As these radio waves pass through the ionized or electrically charged layers, they lose energy due to increased collisions with electrons, which can weaken or entirely absorb the radio signals. Alright, on to signal buried in the biggest explosion ever seen hints at a total annihilation. Total annihilation. Every now and again, the night sky lights up with a spectacular explosion that blazes the most energetic light in our universe can produce. Known as gamma ray bursts, they can release in a few seconds what our sun will emit over its lifetime. Now scientists have found a never-before-seen signal buried in the spectrum of electromagnetic radiation delivered by the brightest gamma ray burst ever recorded. That signal is an emission light, a bright region in gamma ray spectrum that produced by something light emitting in what specific wavelength range. And that's something scientists have determined is complete and utter destruction, the mutual annihilation of electron-positron pairs, matter and its antimatter counterpart. Nicknamed the Boat, the short for the brightest of all time, the burst was detected back in October of 2022. It was the result of a huge star exploding as its core collapsed into a black hole. Spilling out so much energetic protons, we had a hard time taking accurate measurements. But measurements were indeed taken, and scientists knew from very early on that they were looking at something special. A few minutes after Boat erupted, Fermi's gamma ray burst monitor recorded an unusual peak energy that caught our attention, says astrophysicist Maria I'm so sorry. Ravasilo of Radboud University in the Netherlands. When I first saw that signal, it gave me goosebumps. Our analysis since then shows that it to be the first high-confidence emission line seen in 50 years of studying gamma ray. Don't let the boat take your title. Yeah, I know, right? I'm not that bright, though. Ever seen in 50 years of studying gamma ray bursts. Appearing as brightened bars on the spectrum of light emitted from a source, emission lines indicate something is causing a particular wavelength to shine more brightly. A source of extra emission. Okay, this is an example of it. And this is the emission from the signature beryllium. Beryllium, excuse me. So it's not has to do with anything that we saw, they saw. Similarly, darker bars known as absorption lines can appear where wavelengths of light are absorbed. Emission and absorption features can tell us a lot about the constituent chemistry of various astrophysical processes, from the metallicity of stars to the molecules that in the makeup of distant planetary atmospheres. There are different scenarios that can produce a gamma ray burst, an explosion of most of the energetic light on an electromagnetic spectrum. But the one that produced the boat, officially named GRB 221009A, was the birth of a black hole. The outer material of the star was violently ejected into space, while the core collapsed under gravity to form the densest kind of object in the universe. Artist impressions of an astrophysical jet erupting from an object. This explosion was accompanied by jets or particles bursting outwards in opposite directions. This is what we see in a gamma ray burst, with the jet angled towards our line of sight. When the boat first exploded, the brightness was so extreme it obscured any detail. Over 80 seconds, the burst evolved from peak energy of 12 million electron volts down to around 6 million electron volts. Just 5 minutes later, the brightness had subdued enough for the Fermi Gamma Ray Telescope to discern an emission line that lasted at least 40 seconds. So they couldn't actually rate it with the telescope itself. The researchers believe that the phenomenon, well, the initial part of it, the researchers believe the phenomenon called annihilation was responsible for the enhanced glow. Can you not chew that, cat? When an electron and its antimatter counterpart, positron, collide, they produce a photon with the energy of 0.511 million electron volts. The emission observed in the boat reflects a much higher energy, but the researchers have an explanation for that. The annihilation occurred in a jet that was moving towards us at a roughly 99.9% of the speed of light. This made the energy appear much higher than it was. An illusion based on our viewing angle that can be seen in other astrophysical jets. Okay, here.
In late 2022, the brightest gamma ray burst ever seen shocked astronomers, and even temporarily blinded many high-energy detectors in space.
Fermi!
Now, a study of the first few minutes of this burst have found an important feature not seen before. Gamma ray bursts are the most powerful explosions in the cosmos. One that occurred October 9th, 2022, was quickly dubbed the Boat, the brightest of all time. Events like it may occur in Earth's skies only once every 10,000 years.
Our luck, damn.
As with most gamma ray bursts, the Boat arose from the death of a massive star. When its core ran out of fuel, it collapsed, creating a black hole in the star's center. Matter swirled toward the black hole, and some of it was thrown out along two jets moving near the speed of light. The jets drilled their way out of the star and blasted into space. We see a gamma ray burst when one of these jets happens to point almost directly at Earth. That happens somewhere in the sky almost every day. The closer to head-on we view a jet, the brighter it appears. This, along with an unusually narrow jet, is what made the Boat so exceptional. NASA's Fermi Observatory carries instruments specifically designed for studying these explosions. Its gamma ray burst monitor was saturated by the Boat's initial flash, but was fine a few minutes later. And it's in that data, around 5 minutes into the event,
I guess they need to improve
that
that
scientists
technology.
found something new. It's an emission line, a narrow band of enhanced brightness in light spread out in a spectrum. It only lasted 40 seconds, but it's the first one ever seen with high confidence during a burst. It gives scientists insight into processes within parts of the jet where gamma rays, the highest energy form of light, come from. Researchers say it's likely produced by electrons and their antimatter twins, positrons, colliding and annihilating within the jet. Each collision produces a pair of gamma rays, but it also works backwards. Two gamma rays can collide to form an electron and a positron. In the jet's environment, both processes occur, so there are plenty of particles to go around. For this to explain what Fermi saw, the gamma rays had to have been shifted to higher energies by their motion. This is similar to a siren rising in pitch as it races toward us.
Oh, Doppler effect.
To get that boost, the particles emitting the gamma ray line must have been moving at 99.9% the speed of light. After decades of studying GRBs, scientists know little about the processes within these incredible jets, yet they're a staple of the cosmos. Now, Fermi has given us a brief glimpse inside.
Sorry. I figured they might be able to explain it kind of better and also do visuals. Because we're looking into the jet where the matter is moving at near speed of emission, becomes greatly blue shifted and pushed towards a much higher energies, explains astrophysicist I'm so sorry. Gorgonzian of the Gran Sasso Science Institute in Italy. Yeah, I'm a quarter Italian. That doesn't mean I can read Italian names. Though it seems like GRB 221009A was extreme example of a gamma ray burst. Subsequent observations and analysis has since revealed that the boat was actually quite normal. Its brightness was merely the result of the orientation, erupting right in our direction. This is actually good news. It means we can use the boat to understand how gamma ray bursts typically evolve over time, and the processes that take place within them. After decades of studying these incredible cosmic explosions, we still don't understand the details of how these jets work, says astrophysicist Elizabeth Hayes of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Finding these clues like this remarkable emission line will help scientists investigate its extreme environments more deeply. Alright, on to one of the named things in this stream. It's official! Scientists have confirmed what's inside the moon. Goddamn. I did not mean to close that. Why did you do that? Why did you torture me so? And the creator of this, the writer of this has very snarky. Just saying that. Well, the verdict is in. The moon is not made of green cheese after all. A thorough investigation published May 2023 found the core of the moon is in fact a solid ball with a density similar to that of iron. This, researchers hope, will help settle a long debate on whether the moon's inner heart is a solid or molten, and led to a more accurate understanding of the moon's history, and by extension, that of the solar system. Our results, wrote team lead by astronomer Arthur Braud of the French National Center for Scientific Research in France, questioned the evolution of the moon's magnetic field thanks to its demonstration of its existence of the inner core, and support a global mantle overturn scenario, which brings substantial just because they detect magnetism doesn't mean that the core itself is actually iron. There are other metals that can be magnetized. The question, the evolution of the moon's magnetic field thanks to its demonstration of the existence of the inner core, and support global mantle overturn scenario that brings substantial insight in the timeline of the lunar bombardment in the first billion years of the solar system. Probing the interior composition of objects in the solar system is most effectively accomplished through seismic data. The way that acoustically build bases, which I'll be dead when that happens. I know! They said that it would be my generation when I was at space camp. My generation would also be on Mars. Ha! Ha ha! The way that acoustic waves generated by quakes move through and reflect from material inside the planet or the moon can help scientists create a detailed map of the object's interior. We happen to have lunar seismic data collected by the Apollo mission, but its resolution is too low to accurately determine the inner core state. We know there is a fluid outer core, but what encompasses remains under debate. Models of a solid inner core and an entirely fluid core work equally well within the Apollo data. To figure out once and for all, Broad and his colleagues collected data from space missions and lunar laser ranging experience to compile a profile of various lunar characteristics. These include the degree of its deformation by its gravitational interaction with Earth, the variation in its distance from the Earth, and its density. Next, they conducted modeling with various core types to find which matched most closely with the observational data. They made several interesting findings. First, the models that most closely resembled what we know about the moon describe an active overturn deep inside the lunar mantle. This means that the denser material inside the moon falls towards the center, and the less dense material rises upward. This activity has long been proposed as a way of explaining the presence of certain elements in volcanic regions of the moon. The team's research adds another point in the forward tally of this evidence, and they found that the lunar core is very similar to that of the Earth, with an outer fluid layer and a solid inner core. According to their modelings, the outer core has a radius of about 362 kilometers, 225 miles, and the inner core has a radius of about 258 kilometers, 160 miles. That's about 15% of the entire radius of the moon. The inner core the team found has a density of about 7,822 kilometers per cubic meter. That's very close to the density of iron. Curiously, when a 2011 team led by NASA Marshall planetary scientist Rene Weber found a similar result using what were then state-of-the-art seismological techniques on the Apollo data to study the lunar core. They found evidence of a solid inner core with a radius of about 240 kilometers and a density of about 8,000 kilograms per cubic meter. Their results, Broad and his team said, are confirmation of those earlier findings and constitute a pretty strong case for an Earth-like lunar core. This has some interesting implications of the moon's evolution. We know that not long after it was formed, the moon had a powerful magnetic field, which started to decline about 3.2 billion years ago. Such a magnetic field is generated by motion and convection in the core. So what the lunar core is made of is deeply relevant to how and why the magnetic field disappeared. Given humanity's hope to return to the moon in relatively short order, perhaps we won't be long to wait for the seismic verification of these findings. Alright. The moon has a mysterious atmosphere, and we finally know its source. For the moon, for most intent purposes, is naked, bare, and exposed to the vacuum of space. But Earth's satellite does indeed have a blanket of gases, thin and tenuous, but persistent enough to be considered a kind of atmosphere known as an exosphere. Exactly how the moon sustains that diffuse shell of gases have been something of a puzzle. Earth's magnetic fields acts as a confining influence on the atmosphere, but the moon has nothing of the sort, so its exosphere could have been stripped away by solar activity long ago. It's clear that the moon's diminishing gases are constantly being topped up, and now scientists have discovered the source of that replenishment. Tiny micrometeorites, barely the size of grains of dust, are constantly smacking into the lunar surface, kicking up and vaporizing lunar dust, and releasing atoms into the space around the moon. We have a definitive answer that meteorite impact vaporization is the dominant process that creates the lunar atmosphere, says geochemist Nicole Nye of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The moon is close to 4.5 billion years old, and through that time, the surface has been continuously bombarded by meteorites. We show that eventually a thin atmosphere reaches a steady state because it's continuously replenished by small impacts all over the moon. Because the atmosphere of the moon is so diffused, it's challenging to study. We know we know it is there because detectors left by the Apollo missions have detected different atomic components therein, but scientists have had a hard time figuring exactly how it originates. Micrometeorite impacts have strongly implicated as a major contributor through modeling, and has a process called ion sputtering, in which atoms are ejected from the lunar surface when bombarded with charged particles carried by solar wind. Nye and her colleagues want to look more closely at the different processes and the role they play in generating and maintaining the lunar exosphere, so they performed a new analysis. They carefully studied data from a lunar orbiter called the Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer, or LADY, which operated for several months between 2013 and 2014. Based on LADY's data, it seemed both processes are playing a role, Nye says. For instance, it showed that during meteorite showers, you see more atoms in the atmosphere, meaning impacts have an effect. But it also showed when the moon is shielded from the sun, such as during an eclipse, that there are also changes in the atmosphere's atoms, meaning the sun also has an impact. So the results were not clear or quantitative. In order to narrow down further, researchers needed to go right to the source. They examined actual samples of the moon dirt collected during the Apollo program, looking for two elements, potassium and rubidium. Excuse me, I know how to say it. Give me a second. Also, where I had a cough drop in my voice. It's lovely right now. There we go. In order to narrow it down further, researchers needed to go right to the source. They examined actual samples of moon dirt. Okay, alright. I already read that part. Both known to occur on the moon, and both easily vaporized. When solar particles or micrometeorites smack into the lunar surface, any rubidium and potassium hanging out there would be vaporized. Being heavier elements, however, they would fall down to the lunar surface pretty quickly. Critically, the ratios of each of the element's isotope rain would vary depending on whether they were vaporized by micrometeorite impact or ion sputtering. The team crushed their moon dirt into a fine powder and analyzed the results using a mass spectrometer. And they found that both processes are indeed playing a role in generating the lunar exosphere. But the contribution of micrometeorites is more than double the contribution of the solar wind. With impact vaporization, most of the atoms would stay in the lunar atmosphere, whereas ion sputtering, a lot of atoms would be injected into space, Nye explains. From our study, we can now quantify the role of both processes, saying that the relative contribution of impact vaporization versus ion sputtering is about 70-30, or larger. Missions to retrieve these samples have already been, The results doesn't just have implications for our understanding of the moon. If similar processes are taking place elsewhere in the solar system, such as asteroids or other moons, we could detect them in samples. Missions to retrieve these samples have already been performed or are underway. The European Space Agency is hoping to send a sample return mission to the Martian moon Phobos, for example. Measuring potassium and rubidium isotopes in the regloth of these objects, the researchers write, would help us understand how they were affected by the meteoroid bombardments and solar wind sputtering on geological timescales, and how space weathering differs across the solar system. Titanic asteroid, 20 times larger than Dinosaur Killer, reshaped the solar system's largest moon. A colossal asteroid impact on the Jupiter moon Ganymede not only reshaped its physical landscape, but may have also altered its rotation, drawing parallels to the cataclysmic events on Earth and Pluto. Approximately 4 billion years ago, an asteroid hit Ganymede. Now, a Kobe University researcher has discovered the solar system's biggest moon's axis shifted as a result of the impact. This confirmed that the asteroid was around 20 times larger than the one that ended the age of the dinosaurs on Earth and caused one of the biggest impacts with clear traces in the solar system. Ganymede is the largest moon in the solar system, bigger than even the planet Mercury, and is also interesting for the liquid water oceans beneath its icy surface. Like the moon's, Earth's moons, it is tidally locked, meaning that it always shows the same side to the planet. It is orbiting, and this also has a far side. On large parts of its surface, the moon is covered by furrows that form concentric circles around one specific spot, which led researchers in the 1980s to conclude that they are a result of a major impact event. I guess this right here. I mean, that is large, if that's it. If the entire region... Or I think it's just that small region, I don't know. I'll read it in a second. I just happened to see this on the side of the trending news. So I haven't actually read this article. The Jupiter moons Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto all have interesting individual characteristics. But the one that caught my attention were these furrows on Ganymede, said Kobe University planetologist Naoyuki Hirata. He continues, excuse me, we know that this feature was created by an asteroid impact about 4 billion years ago, but we are unsure how big this impact was and what effect it had on the moon, or it's just that general area there, but kind of interesting that that entire region is kind of darkened, but I guess if something that big, it wouldn't be that round anymore. Large parts of its surface, Jupiter moon Ganymede is covered by furrows, and those are furrows, that form concentric circles around one specific spot. Left, right, cross. Okay, so it is that area. No, it's also water, so it might be a tidal thing. Data from the remote objects is scarce, making research very difficult. So, Rata was the first to realize that the purported location of the impact is almost precisely on the meridian farthest away from Jupiter, drawing from its similarities with the impact event on Pluto that caused the dwarf planet's rotational axis to shift, that we learned about through the New Horizons space probe. This implies that Ganymede 2 has undergone such reorientation. Because Hirata is a specialist in simulating impact events on moons and asteroids, this realization allowed him to calculate what kind of impact would have caused this reorientation to happen. So, orbital motion. Geologically young terrain without furrows. Okay. Distribution of furrows. And location of the center of the furrow system shown in the hemisphere that always faces away from Jupiter top, and the cylindrical projection map of the Ganymede bottom. The gray regions represent geologically young terrain without furrows. Furrows, green lines, exist only on geologically old terrains, the black regions. Okay, so I'm guessing that those black regions that it's talking about is that we can see also there to some degree. Yeah, older regions. In the journal Scientific Reports, the Kobe University researcher now published that the asteroid was probably had a diameter of around 300 kilometers. I don't know why I keep saying it. Kilometers. 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 about 20 times as large as the one that hit the Earth 65 million years ago and ended the age of the dinosaurs. That's still a question on whether that's really just the thing that happened, but it helped contribute to it. Created a transcendent crater between 1,400 and 1,600 kilometers in diameter. The thing is, what I'm saying about the dinosaurs is there's kind of arguments that the dinosaurs were already starting to lose strength during that time anyways, in the fact of being not as dominant and smaller in size. So it just starting to get smaller in size, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong, who knows. I haven't looked into that much that side of science recently. According to simulations, transcendent craters widely used in lab and computational simulations are the cavities produced directly after a crater excavation and before material settles in and around the crater. According to a simulation, only only an impact of this size would make it likely that the change in this distribution of mass could cause the moon's rotational axis to shift to its current position. This result holds true irrespective of where the surface the impact occurred. No. I want to understand the origin and evolution of Ganymedes and the other Jupiter moons. The giant impact must have had significant impact on the early evolution of Ganymede, but the thermal and structural effects of the impact on the interior of Ganymede might not have been investigated at all. I believe that further research applying the internal evolution of ice moons could be carried out next. Interesting for its subsurface oceans, Ganymede is the final destination of ESA's JUICE space probe. The names they go with some of these things. If everything goes well, the spacecraft will enter orbit around the moon in 2034, and it will make observations for 6 months and send back a wealth of data that will help answer Hirata's questions. Next question is, will all of us still be alive then? Who knows? Anyways! On to, of course, this. This is more recent news, literally, on the thing. Astronauts stuck on space station will be brought back home by Space Force Guardian. A Space Force officer will command the space later this month to safely bring home 2 astronauts who have been unexpectedly stuck aboard the International Space Station, marking the first time a Guardian will launch into space for such a high-profile operation. Colonel Nick Hague, an active-duty Space Force Guardian, will be joined by Russian cosmonaut, so Roskos. I'm gonna mess up the name. Alexander Gorbanov aboard the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft for NASA's Crew 9 mission. Originally, Hague and Gorbanov were supposed to be joined by 2 other astronauts for the first trip to space, but the problems with the Boeing Starline spacecraft that have left Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams stuck aboard the space station for months longer than anticipated shifted the mission objective, date, and staffing. Hague and Gorbanov will launch no earlier than September 24th, NASA said in a Friday news release, and will return to Earth with Wilmore and Williams in February 2025. The Guardian and the cosmonaut were chosen for their particular experience and skill sets. The decision to fly Hague was made by NASA Chief Astronaut Joe Acaba at the agency's space station Agency's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Goodness. Already starting with the fuck-ups of reading things. Oh, I was doing it earlier, and then I got my stride. Now I'm back to doing it badly. Woo! Akaba has a NASA crew member with previous spaceflight experience to command the flight, while ensuring NASA maintains an integrated crew with cosmonaut, who can operate their critical systems for continued safe station operations. The two other astronauts originally slated to join Haig and Gorbanov will be eligible for reassignment in another space mission. The Crew 9's mission will mark the first time in history that a Space Force Guardian was launched into space. Boeing's Starliner launched June 5th with Williams and Wilmore on a mission slated to last only 8 days, of course. But mechanical issues with the spacecraft and concerns over whether it will return this duo safely have left them aboard the ISS for around 3 months. NASA hopes to bring the unmanned Starliner back to Earth as soon as this upcoming weekend. While the Space Force does not create or train astronauts, the Department of Defense has historically provided and loaned many pilots to NASA for involvement with civilian space exploration. Roughly 2/3 of NASA astronauts have prior military experience, according to Space Force. Todd Harrison, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute who focuses on space and defense policy, told Military.com in an interview Monday that saying it wrong. Haig's involvement with the Crew 9 launch, while notable, may lead to more public confusion about Space Force's overall mission, which is creating forces to protect and defend America's satellite fleet and interests in space. Force. Capitalism. Woo. The missions of NASA and the Space Force have often been confused by the public, Harrison added. Just like how a now cancelled Netflix series, Space Force, led to misconceptions about the service branch. Yeah, the thing is, we already have an organization. We're just spending more money. And by the way, NASA is continuously, being not allowed to do it and giving it out to private contractors as it is. That it's basically creating a second organization for government spending when a certain organization already exists. It's redundant. The Space Force has guardians, some of whom may be on loan to NASA and work for NASA as astronauts, but they're not working with the Space Force as astronauts, Harrison says. That it kind of doesn't help, right? Because it, again, conflates what the Space Force does with what NASA does. Just like Netflix TV series conflated the two. Mike Hopkins, originally an Air Force officer, became the first Guardian in the space when he took his service oath in a ceremony aboard the ISS in 2020. Haig will be the first Guardian to launch into space if the Crew 9 mission goes as planned. However, it will mark his third launch and second time in space overall, as he has had previous missions when he was a member of the Air Force. His first mission in 2018 ended with a malfunction, leading to an in-flight launch abort. With who was the one also creating that nice, Was that also SpaceX? I mean, I know it wasn't Boeing, because the Starliner was the first one with Boeing. His first visit to space happened in 2019, where he stayed aboard the ISS for 203 days. Following that mission, he was the Space Force Director of Tests and Evaluation, serving as an Air Force officer, and then transferred into the newest service branch in 2021. While the public may be concerned over NASA's mission and the Space Force's job, I mean, I guess the one thing is one's actually military, even though NASA does work with the military. It's an official branch of the military. points out that Haig's involvement with the operation could potentially inspire future generations to take on a similar career path. The positive, obviously, is they get a little extra press for the Space Force and could help with recruiting. Harrison said, 18-year-olds out there in high school look and say, oh, cool, there's this NASA astronaut, and he came from the Space Force. Maybe I want to follow his career trajectory and join the Space Force. Yes, more military people. In the world that needs peacekeepers. I mean, actual peacemakers. What was that strange pulsing sound? Astronauts solve Starliner mystery. NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore reported a pulsing sound aboard the International Space Station, originating from Boeing's Starline spacecraft. The issue, caused by an audio configuration mishap, has been resolved without affecting the crew or station operations. Yeah, the thing you were talking about yesterday. Yep. A pulsing sound from a speaker on the Boeing Starline aircraft was heard by NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore aboard the International Space Station has stopped. The feedback from the speaker was the result of an audio configuration between the space station and the Starliner. The technical implications of the sound anomaly. The space station audio system is complex, allowing multiple spacecraft and modules to be interconnected, and it is common to experience noise and feedback. The crew is asked to contact mission control when they hear sounds originating in the comm system. The speaker feedback, William reported, had no technical no impact on the crew, Starliner or station operations, including Starliner's uncrewed undocking from the station no earlier than Friday, September 6th. So we'll see tomorrow. Yeah, it'd be even creepier if you hear the screams of the damned or somebody whispering, help me. Or even worse, 7 days. Sorry. Bad joke. Or is it? Alright! Dark matter haunted. Cosmic horror. Here's 2 things that y'all can pay attention to on your own, in the fact of, looking out for it. A new star will soon appear in the sky, and here's how to see it. The stars aren't fixed and unchanging, unlike what many ancient people thought. Once in a while, a star appears when there wasn't one before, and then fades away in a matter of days or weeks. The earliest record of such a guest star, so named by an ancient Chinese astronomers, is a star that suddenly appeared in the skies around the world July 4th, 1054. It quickly brightened and became visible even during the day for the next 23 days. Astronomers in Japan, China, and the Middle East observed this event, as did the Anansi in what was now Anansi, which are now New Mexico. In the second half of 2024, a nova explosion, which I think I have on the next one, yeah, called T Coronae Borealis, or TCRB, will once again be visible to the people on Earth. TCRB will appear 1,500 times brighter than usual, but won't be as spectacular as the event in 1054. And I mentioned this earlier, in one of the other streams about this. I'm a space scientist with a passion for teaching physics and astronomy. I love photographing the night sky and astronomical events including eclipses, meteor showers, and once-in-a-lifetime astronomical events such as the TCRB nova. TCRB will become, at best, the 50th brightest star in the night sky, brighter than only half of the stars in the Big Dipper. It might take some effort to find, but you have the time. You'll witness a rare event. Okay, we've already covered novas before, but I'll go ahead and read through if anybody who happens to watch on my YouTube misses or doesn't know or forget. In 1572, the famous Danish astronomer Vtuber observed a new star in the constellation Cassiopeia. After reporting the event in his work De Novella Stella, or On the New Star, astronomers came to associate the word nova with stellar explosions. Stars, regardless of size, spend 90% of their lives fusing hydrogen into helium in their cores. How a star's life ends, though, depends on the mass of the star. Very massive stars, those more than 8 times the mass of our sun, explode in dramatic supernova explosions, like the ones people observed in 1054 and 1572. In lower mass stars, including our sun, once the hydrogen in its core is exhausted, the star expands to what astronomers call a red giant. The red giant is 100 times its original size and more unstable. Eventually, all that's left is a white dwarf, an Earth-sized remnant made up of carbon and oxygen. White dwarfs are 100,000 times denser than diamonds. Unless they're part of a binary star system, where 2 stars orbit each other, they slowly fade in brightness over billions of years and eventually disappear from sight. TCRB is a binary star system. It's made up of a red giant and a white dwarf, which orbit each other every 228 days, at about half the distance between the Earth and the Sun. The red giant is nearing the end of its life, so it expanded dramatically, and it's feeding material into a rotating disk of matter called an accretion disk, which surrounds the white dwarf. Matter from the accretion disk, which is made mostly of hydrogen, spirals in and slowly accumulates on the surface of the white dwarf. Over time, this blanket of hydrogen becomes thicker and denser until its temperature exceeds 18 million degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 million degrees Celsius. A nova is a runaway thermonuclear reaction similar to the detonation of a hydrogen bomb. Fun! Once the accretion disk gets hot enough, a nova occurs where the hydrogen ignites and gets blown outwards and emits bright light. Astronomers know of 10 recurrent novae, stars that have undergone nova explosions more than once. TCRB is the most famous of these. It erupts on average of every 80 years. Because TCRB is 2,630 light years from the Earth, it takes about 2,630 years to travel the distance. The novae we will see later this year occurred over 2,000 years ago, but its light will reach us later this year. The accretion of hydrogen on the surface of the white dwarf is like sand in an 80-year hourglass. Each time a nova occurs, the hydrogen ignites, and the white dwarf itself is unaffected, but the surface of the white dwarf is wiped clean of hydrogen. Soon after, hydrogen begins accreting on the surface of the white dwarf again. The hourglass flips, and the 80-year countdown to the next nova begins anew. Careful observations during its past 2 novae in 1866 and 1946 shows that the TCRB became slightly brighter about 10 years before the nova was visible from the Earth. Then it briefly dimmed. Although scientists aren't sure what causes these brightness changes, this pattern has repeated, with a brightening in 2015 and a dimming in March 2023. Based on these observations, scientists predict a nova will be visible to us sometime in 2024. How bright will it be? Astronomers use the magnitude system first developed by Hippocrates of Nicaea more than 2,010 years ago to identify the brightness of stars. In this system, a difference of 5 in magnitude signifies a change by a factor of 100 in brightness. The smaller the magnitude, the brighter the star. In dark skies, the human eyes can see stars as dim as a magnitude of 6. Originally, visible light we received from TCRB comes entirely from its red giant, a magnitude 10 star barely visible with binoculars. During the nova event, the white dwarf's exploding hydrogen envelope will brighten to a magnitude of 2 or 3, and will briefly become the brightest star in its home constellation, Cornora Borealis. This maximum brightness will only last several hours, and TCRB will fade from visibility with the naked eye with a matter of days. So it's basically saying this is using the Los Angeles sky, where it would be located. Libra. So, of course, okay, Ursa Minor. I would say, as the Earth rotates, I mean, on its axis, it will be a different setup. On where the constellation will be located. Cora Borealis is not a prominent constellation. It's nestled above Bootes and to the west of Ursa Major, home to the Big Dipper in the northern skies. To locate the constellation, look due west and find Artreus, the brightest star in that region. Then look about halfway between the horizon and the zenith, the point directly above you, at 10 p.m. local time in North America. Cora Borealis is approximately 20 degrees above Arcturus, and it's about the span of one hand, from the tip of the thumb to the pinky an arm's length. At the brightest, TCRB will be brighter than all the stars in the Corona Borealis, but not as bright as the Arcturus. You can also use the interactive star charts such as Stellarum, or one of the many apps available on smartphones to locate the constellation. Familiarizing yourself with the stars in this region of the sky before the nova occurs will help identify the new star once it brightens. Although TCRB is too far from the Earth for this event to rival the supernova of 1054, it's nevertheless an opportunity to observe a rare astronomical event with your own eyes. For many of us, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime event. I think I've already read this aloud before, or something somewhere. Nope. I guess this is a new person talking. And this is a different, it's talking about it also, from a different... Wait, this is just a copy and paste. PBS! Did you copy and paste this? PBS! This literally... PBS! Oh, it is the same. It's same guy. I guess they bought the article from him. Or the original location was the conversation. Anyways! On to more Earth-related stuff, kinda, sort of. Hi, I love beds! Yeah, I hope I can be able to see it, or like, I'm gonna knock on wood for this. I hope that there's no, you know, say storm, or clouds, or like rain, or all other stuff that, since it only lasts for a few hours, that will cause us to miss it in any way. Anyways, how are you doing, and welcome! This is our monthly science stream because I am a nerd and like talking about science. But also don't have the voice capacity to continuously do it for more than one stream a month. I normally do gaming, so or actually it's whatever interests me, but it's mostly gaming. Yeah, when the solar eclipse, I think, or whatever happened, we happened to have cloud cover, so we couldn't see it. I was so mad. Like, I had the sunglasses and everything. And the cloud was like, no. And it kept going out like every 30 minutes in hopes that, you know, because solar eclipse lasts a certain amount of time, that I might see bits and pieces of it. I only got one glance of it for like maybe a 10 seconds at most, where the clouds kind of cleared where I could see it, but not completely. So, cry. Unless I decide to travel like out outside the United States, won't be seeing one for another 40 years, was it? Luckily, my nieces and nephews went all the way up to Kentucky or that general area. That was the best viewings. Because I had plans, by the way, of maybe going up and over to see it on the best view planes, but certain financial problems kind of cut that short because I'm in Alabama, and that's still like a kind of day trip. So, but I did get pretty pictures from everybody, so I'm happy on that one. Okay, continents of Venus hinted surprisingly. Okay, continents of Venus hint at surprising link to early Earth, scientists discover. Venus and Earth seem like twins who, through dramatically different circumstances and choices, ended up leading dramatically different lives. Earth is bountiful and welcoming, with a soft, safe atmosphere, sloshing oceans, forgiving temperatures, and land masses carpeted with growth. Venus is choked by clouds of toxic gas, rains acid, has crushing atmospheric pressure, and burns with temperatures more befitting Dante's Inferno in the hundreds of degrees. Well, it doesn't have blood rivers or lakes either, so Dante's Inferno reference. Venus is your ex. These differences are more than skin deep. Venus lacks our planet's tectonics, including large separate areas of planetary crust that grind against each other and help maintain a stable climate here on Earth, and in which continental landmasses are embedded. I think it was last month's stream we also started talking about, there's an article that talked about how Venus is losing its atmosphere at a higher rate, and they're not completely sure why. Also, if you want to catch like last month's stream, I have clips. Well, like I clip it up into the different subjects like space, biology, because I do a whole set of stuff. And it's on my YouTube if you want to check that out. But yeah, there's a. I'm texting. Let me real quickly look up. Because I do a whole bunch of science, different stuff. Was it the science? It might have not been last month's or the months before that, but it was rather recent. Actually, I think I have it actually in the title of it. Oh, absolutely. The whole part of this actually started, because I used to work at, a science museum, the Space and Rocket Center. And when the, Odyssey, moonlander that happened with the private company, we kind of watched a replay of the live stream, and so I started telling them stories because I was a museum guide, so I had all these stories, and like some of the docents there were former scientists and stuff, so I had entire stories that like most people wouldn't know talking about it. And I just found that I was so excited about talking about it that I figured, you know, I'm going to do a monthly thing for it. So, but that's how it started. Oh, I've always been kind of interested in science, but it I really did enjoy working there. My autism got in the way of me staying there, though. But I enjoyed, for the most part, interacting with people and doing tours. I didn't like the politics that involved the general workplace. If I could be left alone from that, I'd be fine. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing that stuff. Okay. The lack of tectonic plates on the Venus is thought to be a pretty powerful contributing factor to many of the other differences between the planets. We don't really know how Venus's geological past unfolded. The oldest part of the planet's surface, the vast plateaus known as, I'm going to slaughter some of these names, tesserae, seem to have tectonic features, but how they emerged has been something of a mystery. Which I guess is up there. Yeah. Well, now scientists have found something that really threw them for a loop. Venus's tesserae may have been formed through the process very similar to those that produced the Earth's earliest continents billions of years ago. The study challenges our understanding of how planets evolve, says geoscientist Fabio Capitano of Monash University in Australia. We did not expect Venus, with its scorching 460 degrees Celsius or 860 degrees Fahrenheit surface temperature and lack of plate tectonics to possess such complex geological features. The Earth's crust is pretty complex compared to that of other planets. It's broken into pieces, and those pieces are loose and able to rub up against each other, slip under each other in a process known as subduction, and slowly rearrange themselves in different configurations. The very oldest parts of the Earth's continental crust are regions known as cratons. The continental tectonic plates are generally weaker than oceanic plates, but there are regions where the rock is older, denser, and stronger. These cratons, we know around 35 of them. I think there is one on North America. Don't quote me on this. When I was younger, I wanted to be a geologist / meteorologist, but I mean, that was way back when. And thank you so much, I Love Beds, for the follow. I appreciate. Scientists believe they are first formed, pushing upwards through the Earth's molten interior, and hardened to provide seeds on which the continents are found. Let me see. I think it's in the Great Plains. I misspelled that. Yep, I'm right. Well, I'm halfway right. Where is it? The shield. But yeah, it's through there. That is the general area, so. Our knowledge... okay, pushing up continents find a purpose to grow. Our knowledge of Venus is limited. It's not a planet that invites human exploration. But for 15 years between 1980 89 and 1994, NASA's Magellan spacecraft used a radar probe to map in detail the surface of Venus beneath its cloak of sulfuric acid clouds. By the way, there isn't actually many. I think only recently we've actually decided to send more things to Venus. There's like been a gap period by which nothing was specifically sent to Venus to, examine it. There was one, if I remember correctly, that went to Mercury, and they did a flyby pictures of Venus on the way to Mercury. But yeah. Capitano and his colleagues tapped into this data, focusing on a tesserae region known as the Ishtar Terra, the largest plateau on Venus, using computer simulations to explore the way this region formed billions of years ago when the solar system was still in its early years. Their results suggest that the tesserae may have been formed just like cratons, surging upwards from within the molten interior of Venus to emerge on the surface and harden into planetary crusts. This finding provides a fascinating new perspective on Venus and its potential links to early Earth, Capitano says. The features we found on Venus are strikingly similar to the Earth's early continents, suggesting the dynamics of Venus' path may have been more similar to Earth's than previously thought. This gives us a clue for understanding the planetary evolution, suggesting that however Earth and Venus diverged along their separate crustal journeys, it happened after the process of craton formation, but before the formation of plate tectonics. This timing matters because the when and how different planetary characteristics emerge could be a big clue on how habitability is established and maintained on rocky planets like Earth. The strongest tool we have for this is finding when and where the two planets match up. By studying similar features on Venus, we hope to unlock the secrets of Earth's history.